Chapter 104 The ancient king kneels by my prone form. His expression is that of bored majesty, patient towards his lesser, yet unattainable. Do you yield? I feel no aura coming from him. Both he and Malachim have masked their presence so completely that I find myself incapable of even guessing at his state of mind. It does not matter. I know with certainty what the consequences are here, because his blood became mine and so did some of his instincts. I am defeated. I will yield or I will die. There are no other alternatives. I nod to signify assent, and he stands back up. It is done. I am his prisoner. I will no longer fight. Take her to the side. Malachim picks me up by the collar and drags me through the mud to a patch of grass beneath a tall apple tree at the edge of the village. I take this opportunity to make an inventory as my feet dig a furrow in the wet loam. I have lacerations all over my arms, some of them still seeping blood. There is a gaping hole in my chest. My spine is broken. So is my arm. Despite having fed only a few days ago, the wounds are slow to heal since they were inflicted by Malachim's claws. All in all, I hurt like a bitch. My dress is a rag and all my belongings besides the gauntlet are gone, not that I had taken much to begin with. This is a secondary concern. I do not own, nor know of any weapon, armor or tool that could have stopped either of those two. Malachim did not even push himself. He matched my strength and speed then beat me on technique alone. He was just toying with me. I stare at his broad, leather-covered back. The pale skin of his arm finished knitting itself from its previous butchered state. I am not scared. If I repeat it often enough, it might become true. Anything to take my mind off the fact that I am once again at the mercy of a man who ground me to dust, a man whose shadows I have lived under without him even being on the same continent. It took me years to rebuild myself, to forge a new identity from the wreck he left in his wake, and now he has returned and I am, once again, powerless. And the most amusing thing of all is that he does not care. Once I give him my agreement he turns and gracefully walks to the village square. I struggle as weariness smothers my mind, invades every recess with the urgency of my situation. I force myself to focus and rationalize it. Fate pushed me here instead of away. A path to salvation must exist, and I must witness or acquire something important. I refuse to believe that my sire can manipulate the threads of destiny himself, therefore, all is not as desperate as it seems. I just need to stay calm and play this carefully. I cannot afford to give up. Not now and not ever. My sire stops. From where I lie, I see him as he stands in the middle of the village. The view is odd. He is dressed in a cream-colored ensemble that fits him perfectly. Not a mote of dust nor a speck of mud has managed to stain its understated elegance. He looks like a sovereign in the midst of a royal hunt, more interested in networking with high lords than in running down stags. By comparison, the village represents the far side of poverty with cramped houses sticking haphazardly out of the dusty ground like the teeth of a hag. There is not a single pane of glass to be found nor any dyed material piece of cloth in the ratty curtains. Even the stalls are held together by hand-woven twine instead of nails. People here do not live. They subsist. They will not do so for long. The ancient monster raises a fist and I gasp at the raw, unadulterated power now bursting from his unmoving figure. Reality hiccups and moves until I feel a difference in the texture of the world. Colors flare brighter, bleed into each other as they become more fluid. Even my wounds close with increased speed as willpower gains the edge over matter and rules become more lax. The sensation is slightly euphoric, causing me to smile despite my predicament. If this is how it feels to live in a Lycian world, then our planet must feel dreary indeed. My moment of pleasure dies when he casts. The vision I had of his battle on the beach did not give him justice. Nirari whispers a word and, by this act, violates the beauty he had brought here. A rune like a scar appears before his extended arm, as if carved into invisible flesh. It pulses the angry red of a festering wound. Flee. I gasp and shiver, then gasp again when the pain of movement washes my mind clean. This is a new feeling. No, this is an emotion I lost a long time ago and one I have not missed. Terror. It washes away everything else. Flee. I cannot. Flee. I fight against the all-encompassing wave of white noise hounding my mind with all the mental fortitude I can muster. This is fake. This is a trick. Constanza wheels around, holding her lacerated cheek. A monster. I am no longer so weak. Which finger? I am no longer trapped and alone. You are. No. You are. The villagers crash against their doors in their desperate attempts to escape, only to be cut down like so many sheep to the slaughter by some dreadful spell. Nirari stands in the middle like a director to some hellish orchestra, stabbing, gouging, cleaving with simple gestures, and not once does his expression move away from casual ennui. He is just cleaning house. I suppose that he does not wish to leave any witnesses. After only a minute, the massacre runs out of victims. Nirari signals, and Malakim pulls me through fields of uncaring grass like a captured flag. We leave the village behind with only 2 babies screaming their lungs out among a field of dead. This is not mercy, but expediency. Toddlers cannot speak, and so no effort is expended to silence them. That is all. In the following hours, I am dragged north and away from my planned destination. Malakim and Nirari do not hurry, and eventually I manage to fix my spine and upgrade my station from luggage to unwilling follower. I do my best to keep my flickering aura under control and stare at their backs with apprehension. I can see them. I can even smell a whiff of cold perfume among the smells of loam, grass, and flowers. They do not emit sounds, nor do they have an aura. Every time I turn my head, they disappear. Their stealth upsets me almost as much as the fact that I am wearing filthy rags. I have always been the one to sneak up on people, so far. I suppose that rules do not apply to them. As the night runs its course, we keep moving north through the wilderness. The land here is choked with life, but devoid of human presence. I grit my teeth and focus on closing every last wound, still feeling the sting of Malakim's claws in my flesh. I am ready to admit being lost in the monotony of the landscape until, finally, I spot smoke in the distance. When we crest the next hillock, I feel my sense of reality drift away once more. Hidden from prying eyes is a camp from another era, a gathering of people I would not have expected from the most vivid imagination. Men and women clad in white linen bands work among a circle of beige tents. Their skin is golden, and their limbs are lean and muscular in the manner of hunters. Tattoos adorn them, and shaven skulls as decorations are, more likely, symbols of rank. They perform various tasks in complete silence, the shuffling of their feet the only noise besides the crackling of their fires. A sentinel notices us and bows as we enter the perimeter. As if linked by a single mind, the others turn and salute with eerie uniformity. Those among them who wield lives and bows raise them to their foreheads in a strange gesture I had never seen before. None speak. Nirari waves them back to their labor as we approach the object of his attention, a narrow opening in the side of a valley not unlike that of a mausoleum. It must have started as a natural cavern at some point in the past, then someone enlarged it and added decorations on the side walls shining an organic yellow glow in the darkness like so many veins. The assembled strange people apparently spend a significant amount of time clearing debris to free the path, and as small piles of broken rocks, sand, and gravels dot the far side of the basin. We walk in. Though the path would not let a carriage through, even the unusually tall Nirari has no need to bend his back to cross the threshold. We end up inside a small cavern showing signs of a massive excavation. The lines of fluorescent paint merge and diverge in intricate patterns with no discernible order. Sometimes, I can almost glimpse hints of shape, an owl caught mid-flight, a lit candle, then I move and the construct collapses into amorphous shapes. The mirage is gone. The cavern is not too deep and we angle downward into a passage. Some of the walls are still wet, soil staining the glistening surface. It goes on for a few yards and then the ground dries again. I feel a shift in the air, like opening a door to a musty cellar the further we descend. It takes us a few minutes to reach another cavern. While the previous one had an almost primal feeling to it, this one has been clearly worked on and transformed into a workshop of sorts, now abandoned. Great tables of pale stone pitted with impacts and marred with puddles of molten metal speak of some great works in a distant past. A large brick smelter takes a significant part of the right wall, while the left used to be a storage area now empty save for a few broken remains of stone and ceramics. As deserted as it seems now, this place must have been quite a sight when active. The only intact thing remaining are runes engraved into almost every surface that still shine with remnants of power. They are in an ancient and unfamiliar script that reminds me of Akkad yet more sinuous, and the taste I get from them is that of molding and twisting. This is an artifact production facility. My sire lifts a fist and the ground rumbles. Blocks of stone emerge from the ground in compact formation, then some stop while others keep going up. In 1 second, he has formed a massive throne out of cyclopean gray slabs upon which he sits. Malakim comes to stand by his side, his eyes boring into me. My sire's gaze lands on me and I feel an immediate sense of dread. I do not have to think. I know what is required of me. Stepping before him, I perform an ancient warrior salute, head bent and right hand raised before my arm. I believe that the state of my wardrobe and the obvious signs of battle grant me the right to claim a soldier status rather than that of a captured princess. The risk exists that he would take offense. It is one I am willing to take, considering the alternative. Fortunately, it appears that Nirari is in a pleasant mood. His brows rise almost imperceptibly in what I believe to be amusement. Now what am I to do with you, my feisty little princess? Fate certainly has ways of toying with us. He did not ask a question, and so I do not utter a word. The rules here are simple. Show utmost respect, answer fully and truthfully, and only speak when spoken to. To deviate is to die. Nirari spends some time pondering the situation while, outside, the night nears its end. I maintain my poise and will do so until he gives me leaves or until dawn does. Did you know we were there? He suddenly asks. No. Do you know why we are here? No. Do you know where you are? This one is open to interpretation. West Texas? He waves the answer away. Were you not warned of our coming? No. Should I have been? An acceptable inquiry, considering the situation. Our meeting might be considered as a waste of time, a hurdle for him. Looking for a guilty party to punish later is standard. I made an agreement with Clan Natalis. They were to close all outside communications and not speak of our coming, nor of our activities. They were given an hour to contact their traveling members. Did they not know that you were coming? They did. Curious. I do not volunteer the fact that I may not be reached by message spell so long as I carry Nashoba's earrings. This is problematic. I may have to stop using them in the future. What were you doing so far from your territory? So, he knows where I live. I should have expected it, of course, yet hearing it from his very mouth sends a chill along my newly repaired spine. I pushed him away from my thought, he and the other old monster, like a child hiding her feet under the cover from the creature under her bed. Bed sheets are no shield, and neither is distance. I was on my way to save a relative. He is held captive in Matamoros to the southwest. A relative? My nephew. He allows himself the shadow of a smile. Ah, yes. I remember having a clear lineage to protect. Children. Grandchildren. It has been so long. I am pleased to learn that the tradition is still alive. Well then, little princess, you do not seem to know what we are here for, so I will allow you to live and serve. I have an inkling as to how you may assist. After all, you did successfully cast one of my spells. He lifts a finger and a sound like chimes spreads over the cavern. Send me Violet, I have a task for her, he orders. A few seconds later, I hear hurried footsteps from the corridor and soon, one of the strange humans appears before us. Just like the others, she is dressed in layers of white linen revealing golden skin decorated with intricate tattoos. Now that I am close enough, I notice that they are magical in nature, though she herself is no mage. She walks forward without hesitation and kneels before my sire, placing her forehead on the ground. You will serve my spawn, Ariane, until I rescind that order. The woman's eyes widen in surprise. She stares at me with renewed interest. Oh, and perhaps even a bit of envy before she nods in understanding. She understands Kate? This is. The mortals are not meant to learn it. This is our tongue. How can he commit such a blasphemy? Sensing my disapproval, Nirari smirks, this time genuinely. Violet, open your mouth. She obeys, revealing a scarred stump. Someone cut the tip of her tongue. Well, I suppose that this would work. It also explains why the assembly was so silent. Violet, you will clear one of the rooms adjacent to ours for the use of the princess. You must do so before sunrise. You may ask for assistance. The woman nods and stands up. She bows and rushes back up the stairs. You will present yourself to me as soon as you wake up, Nirari finishes. He stands up and leaves through a pair of open stone gates dug in the far wall. Only after he has gone do I allow myself to relax the position I had assumed. I now realize that panic has saved me, because I told the truth when he asked if I knew what he was doing here. I did figure it out as soon as he mentioned the question, however. There is only one reason that could force Nirari to plumb the depths of the world looking at abandoned magical facilities. The Ancient One is looking for Mother Deer. Meeting Semiramis made it rather obvious as to why Nirari cannot catch up. Space is significantly more fluid for the Witch Queen than it is for the rest of us. It should be easy to remain one step ahead when one of hers is 10 of ours. The thing is that when he last visited one of her old abodes, he merely punched a wall then left. This is different. He is conducting a full excavation of a base that was obviously abandoned at least a century ago. I do not know what he is looking for, but I would bet tonight with Ignis that it relates to finding a countermeasure to his mother's annoying traveling habits. I just pray that he does not find one. By the Watcher, I am not ready to oppose them. I would not even know where to begin. In short order, Violet returns with 2 more minions. They bow to me with the same respect they gave Nirari, and I finally realize that they do not serve him. They worship him. I follow them through the gates and into a large corridor of rough-hewn gray rock that reminds me of a dungeon. The air is inexplicably fresh, and enough light is provided by the twisting lines for the mortals to shuffle forward. They choose one of the rooms after a quick exchange of hand signals, then cram themselves in like an assault team under bombardment. An instant later, I hear clangs and the rattle of heavy things dragged over rugged stone. I peer in out of curiosity. The 3 humans are busy gathering debris and goods out of what appears to be a disaffected storage room. A lanky man struggles with ingots of metal-colored dull verdigris while another picks up ossified planks from the dusty ground. Violet looks at me with a guilty stare, ashamed. I leave them to their task of making this habitable and decide to inspect the facility. There are more doors to other rooms, some wider than others. One still has abandoned tools possibly left as they were exceedingly easy to replace, calipers, pliers, and even a remote engraver used to inscribe runes on still hot material. 2 of the gates are closed and I assume that those are Nirari's quarters and Etabi's minion. I have no intention of disturbing them. Further, the corridor ends in a junction with 3 ways. The one directly in front of me is blocked by more debris with signs of some of the rubble having already been cleared. The one to my right leads to another workshop. The one to my left fills me with foreboding. It arches to the right 100 yards in the distance. A massive spot of dried red liquid covers the ground only a few paces away from me. I smell human blood, less than 3 days old. I expand my senses and focus on the space before me. I feel no magic at all, but I see a disturbance in the air. A minute current carrying motes of dust that disappears without reason. There is something there. Something hidden and lethal and lying in wait like a moray. The sense of foreboding I feel increases ever so slightly as I take in the length of this passage. A nest of morays. I decide to retreat. The other workshop beckons and done is close enough for lethargy to muddy my mind. I have no need to take any more risks. The next room is a copy of the first one, save that the smelter has been replaced by what may be the remnants of a large saw. Pale dust covers the ground and pieces of crumbled rock lie here and there as if fallen from larger constructs. Many of them have one perfect side, polished until flat as a mirror, while the rest is raw and irregular. I assume that workers here process stones, but I cannot be sure. One thing is certain. A woman alone would have had no use for such a large place. I expected both Semiramis and Nirari to work alone, and I was just disproved. What bothers me is that the tables here are just a bit too low for adult humans now that I stand by their side. I should not dwell on that. My priority should be to find a way to leave. Surrendering does not prevent me from planning an escape. That would have to take place tomorrow, however. Now is far too late to be running outside. I also feel that it would be treacherous to run away on the very night I was captured. I am aware of the lack of logic backing that statement. Much like all the instincts of honor and obligation I inherited from Nirari, this one is more a matter of tradition turned into law than anything else. Frustrating. I spent some time looking around the workshop and find 2 other sets of gates leading away, though they are currently locked. Afterward, I returned to my quarters and noticed that the 3 linen-covered servants have cleared the space, swept it, and created a rudimentary nest made from hard fabric seated with a few colorful pillows. A potpourri exhales a perfume of rose and lavender, while a single lit candle basks the naked stone with a warm glow. They made a real effort turning this jail into a bedroom. I close the door behind me and settle for the night, hugging myself in the ruins of my dress. Tomorrow will be a long day. Marquette, undisclosed date. A familiar tug. I jump up, sending my office chair banging against the wall. No. No, not that thing again. No. I refuse. Bind. Counter. Sever. Come on, work, damn it. None of my efforts bear fruit. I end up muttering insults against fate, the spheres and whatever is causing this horrible phenomenon, but to no avail. It will happen. I am being summoned again. Dramatis personae, Candle, a girl who definitely is a soul and might be part dragon. Enjoys flying, her friends staying alive, chocolate. Dislikes undead, necromancers, cold iron. Elaine, a healer and part-time radiant flamethrower. Enjoys healing, the sun, mangoes, mango-based desserts. Dislikes hurting people, sexism, ants. Scared of dragons. Ilia, a battle healer that mostly battles and heals little. Enjoys gourmet food, gourmet battles, making the world better. Dislikes politics, songs about her, child-killing death robots. Ariane, master vampire. Enjoys blood, the hunt, high-yield explosives. Dislikes the sun, pigs set on fire, being set on fire. Eve, a runner on a legendary quest for a loaf of bread. Enjoys strawberry scones, exp, fancy dresses, not that she ever gets a chance to wear them, ale, banter, puns. Dislikes poppy seeds, falling on her face, illusion magic, the stench of cities, puns. Broccoli, a good-natured battle bunny. Enjoys making all the friends, seeing them grow, and go on adventures together. Dislikes bad things happening to people who do not deserve it. Asterisk. A tiny island floated in the infinite expanse of some indeterminate void. It was a rather nice island, with a few trees, green grass, and a pretty pond filled with fresh water. Some astute observers might have noticed a few inconsistencies and told themselves, why, it looks like someone mashed together tourist brochures of what they thought a meadow should look like. They would have been entirely correct. Now, time only had a tenuous grasp on the place on account of how very little matter was actually involved, but it was also of the essence elsewhere, and so things got a bit rushed from then on. Portals started to pop up from all over the place. They came in a variety of scripts and formats to reflect their universes of origin. Some were young and aggressive, while some others had already seen it all and only consented to release their traveler after a proper please and thank you. It was all very messy. The first to arrive was a muscular, lithe woman with free-falling raven hair and piercing blue eyes. She popped out of her gate before it could fully form, and the ritual petered out after the magical equivalent of whatever, less work for me. She materialized a sort of rock made, of all things, from ash, and sat down. She grabbed a hot cup of something out of thin air, then patiently inspected her surroundings while the rest of the guests arrived. The next to pop in was a teen with brown hair and a cheerful expression. Besides her medieval clothes and blue brigandine, her most surprising features were a pair of mostly straight bunny ears jutting up through her kettle helm. Her portal had been rudely pushed up by the others, and the poor lass was cocked out 6 meters into the air. Fortunately, she managed to twist on herself after a little yelp, and landed gracefully on her feet. She brushed herself and looked around a bit, ears turning left and right, just in time for the next guest to arrive. Like a gust of wind, a woman in light leather armor and short dark hair came to a stop on a shower of newly made earth and gravel. She immediately grabbed a massive bone club from her back and searched for whomever had caused this entire bullshittery. Said culprit had wisely decided to wait a bit until the situation settled down, as it were. The rest of the eclectic group came out more or less at the same time. There was a blonde woman in a Renaissance dress and a strange black gauntlet that was propelled mid-curse against a boulder. A young woman in chainmail, who had clearly been too close to a fire, landed ass first into the pond. She had dark skin under all the grime and 2 blue eyes that immediately followed the others wearily even as she sat up to her waist in chill water. Finally, a short, slender woman in Roman lorica flew through her gate on a pair of winged sandals. When no other portals formed, the different members took a moment to check that all their limbs had come with them. They had. It was not the portal's first rodeo, and steal glances at each other. All, except the blonde woman in a Renaissance dress. She walked directly to the one sipping her tea. "Hello again, Ilya." "Ariane. I would not go through that thing again sober if I can help it. May I convince you to help me?" The dark-haired woman, Ilya, considered the question carefully, then disappeared within a mist of ash. She came back out, throwing her own disembodied head at the waiting woman. There were a few gasps. The limbs extended the head towards the blonde woman. She stared at the bloody offering, then at the headless body. Her decision made, she grabbed the decapitated torso like a giant bottle and latched on the neck. She then started chugging blood. The dismembered head rolled her eyes and a brand new body appeared from it in an explosion of flesh, immediately covered by a white shirt and dark pants combo. "You know, I think this counts as sexual harassment," Ilya noted. The vampire shrugged and kept drinking. The other witnesses to the gruesome spectacle were not given time to react, as the next act of their adventure had started. Before them, the master of the domain appeared in all his glory. Chimes and horns roared a mighty fanfare, complete with an otherworldly chorus that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The apparition expanded from a central point in a 4-dimensional canvas, with carefully chosen fractals of alternating eyes, white wings, and fingers. Crimson bands with 5 sides each, or 7, depending on how many strings of reality bothered to show up, formed nice little flows like eldritch bow ties, and there was even a pair of trousers somewhere. As far as first impressions were, the being decided, you could do worse. Unfortunately, the result was poorly received on account of being madness-inducing. "Ah!" everyone screamed, except the woman with the ash tendrils and furniture. She had taken out her cup again, and sent the being a mental message. "Tone it down, and stop messing with space." A great blast like rock-flaying wind across a frozen planet rolled over the islet. It was celestial for sigh, if I must. A second later, a tall man with a handsome, clean-shaven face and carefully combed pale hair stood before the assembled women. He wore a white costume and a winning smile, and he was the spitting image of a toothpaste commercial. The freshly made body took a great breath to address those before him. Blurb flub pfthththtbt. An awkward silence descended upon the group. "I think he's trying to communicate," the woman with the bone club said. "I find his argument unconvincing," the vampire noticed. "It's okay, sir, take your time. I know you can do it," the bunny girl said, her voice filled with genuine conviction. She gave him a thumbs up. The small dark girl sneezed and turned into a dragon. She now covered the entire pond. Instead of answering, the man closed his eyes and focused on something out of view. A transparent cube emerged from out of nowhere and encased him. Then his entire face moved like a video being fast-forwarded at max speed. Eventually, the cube faded and the man returned to normal, for a certain, rather lax definition of normal. I think I got the hang of it now. You creatures of flesh make it seem so easy. Anyway, sorry about that. Ahem. His voice suddenly turned solemn and very loud. Welcome, heroes of a distant land. Heroines, the woman in Roman armor corrected. The man stopped and glared. Look, I was just reading the traditional text, okay? It accounts for all genders. Could you cut me some slack? Looks to me, the ash woman said as she checked the nail, that you're going to ask us for help. The man opened his mouth and closed it several times in a moment of intense emotional distress. Welcome, he continued between gritted teeth, heroines of a distant land. I have called here for only you can stop. The end of the world. Distant horns made a token effort at an ominous pwa-pwa-pwa. The being expected a bit more of a reaction. The bunny clearly felt sorry for him because she belatedly gasped and let out a tiny "how dreadful" of sympathy, but it was too little too late. Which world are we talking about anyway? Someone asked. The man frowned, then his eyes grew distant. VLX-079, middle-sized planet. Pretty unremarkable. Enough magic for a basic system, but they mostly use it as a cheap ID card and resume replacement. Heathens. Anyway, behold the world of. Whatever that was, I'm not repeating it, the time of the prophecy is upon us. Ooh, prophecies. Is there a prince to be kissed? Princess. I'd rather a prince really. A handsome one. With a good, firm chin? The bunny asked, ears quivering with excitement. Well, maybe. The man answered. His gaze turned glassy again. Okay, so I checked and it's not technically part of the deal, but nothing precludes it. Let's just hear it, the vampire asks, swaying a bit. Okay, here goes. At the end of times, when a brilliant light hits the tallest mount of the winter's teeth, the forces of good and evil shall clash across the land until the victor slays the last of their foes, and remakes the world in their image. The celestial being nodded to himself. It was a nice delivery, ominous and all. Very apocalyptic if he dared say so himself. Several of the girls were clapping. The dragon lifted a claw and a small 10 made of silvery light popped at its end. Several clones of the ash woman appeared around her and added their applause to the heap. Thank you, thank you. Now, the reason for your presence is that we hit a little bit of a problem here at management level. See, due to a clerical mishap, the entity assigned to the champion of good got waylaid, and we only noticed too late. What do you mean? He was reincarnated into a cat. Everyone pondered that for a bit. It's not exactly conducive to good training for said champion. Now, to the matter at hand. The celestial being took a step to the side and promptly fell on his face. Me damn it, he bellowed into the ground. Before anyone could decide what to do, the transparent cube returned and the humans and ex-humans glared as the man reappeared at his original position and promptly fell again, and again, and again, at increasing speeds. It was like watching a training montage of the Boston Dynamics robot. Plus sounds. Ouch. And so on. Eventually, his practice paid off and a slightly less immaculate incarnation managed to shuffle his way to the side of the island. It was now noticeable that the man had a stubble, his hair was scruffy, he was sweating a bit, and his eyes were bloodshot to hell. How do you flesh beings manage to focus on anything? I have spent only a few hours in that thing and I want to pee, scratch myself, move, sleep, eat, and drink. And I'm horny. I don't manage. The shiny Roman girl answered helpfully. Maybe, the ashen woman suggested, you're just bad at it. Hey, we have to be supportive, the bunny objected, it's his first time. I am very proud of you, Mr. Celestial Being. You can do it. Maybe we can help? I volunteered at an old folks' home once. Said Celestial Being was at a bit of a loss. Thank you. Sorry, we are on a schedule, let me just get on with the briefing. He moved towards a rock that looked exactly just like any other rock around. So, this is Larry, the champion of good. The air shimmered behind him, and a strange scenery appeared. It was the interior of some cheap retail place. The shelves were stacked with rows of off-brand crackers, and the kind of cookies that only people off their tits on wheat could enjoy. Dim light shone on the painfully thin youth in a horrid green uniform. He had a haunted look, and a sinister cap showing a smiling, cartoonish monkey. From there, brown locks freely flowed. Larry is working as a clerk in a gas station, trying to save enough money to move away from his helicopter mom. That's just so sad, the Roman girl said. Good for him. The bunny added. Wasted potential, the vampire noted. Better than fast food, the ash woman murmured. I know a shit fate when I see one, the Bone Club woman added. The dragon said nothing, but she did feel sorry for the poor lad. And now, the man continued, the champion of evil, Maximilian. Another youth appeared. This one was tall and confident. He had a handsome face, and he rippled with muscle under tight-fitting military fatigue. A cadre of other youthful warriors followed him with a mixed air of protective instincts and admiration. He stopped inside a large office, where a man in a general uniform stood in front of a portrait of himself, still in a general uniform. There was a cute little brass plate under it that read El Presidente. The older man turned and looked at Maximilian. My son, he said as he raised his arms in welcome. There was a collective groan from the girls. Yes, those are indeed stacked odds. And to get it all in one go, those are the celestial advisors. Another image appeared. This one showed, on the right, a mighty winged demon succubus person the size of a bodybuilder. She had a perfect mix of lean muscles and curves to make heads turn. She also had nasty claws. The picture on the left showed a fat tabby cat. Surely, this is a joke, the blonde vampire said. Alas, no. To reward you for your assistance. He stopped mid-sentence. Please note that you will be rewarded for good efforts. Success is not required. The others breathed more easily. Those who still breathed anyway. To reward you, you will receive the non-resurrection non-immortality object of your desires, including but not limited to, better ways to make friends, a lifetime supply of mangoes. The celestial being got increasingly puzzled as the list went on. Good fights that level your third-class skills, a weapon that kills necromancers for good, the blood of a mighty dragon. The dragon girl in the pod shuffled away from the group, casting wary glances. The vampire licked her lips. And a loaf of unstealable, undisappearable, soul bond, definitely their bread. Wow, that's not the usual fare. Those are unusual times, the dragon girl huffed, very unusual. Quite so, the man replied with a frown as he expected a sort of jab. Somehow, things were not exactly going according to plan. They had told him back in HQ, they had said, beware the fleshly beings who cross dimensions, where does every last one of them, but he had been sure he could handle it. Well, the joke was on him now, but hey, you have to get out of your comfort zone sometimes. No pain no gain, as they said. Besides, no one had tried to kill him yet. Alright, he continued, now the reason why you are all of the female persuasion is because the succubus demon on the other side can freely manipulate the hearts of men. Again, there were a few seconds of terribly awkward silence until the ash woman spoke. The hearts of men, or the hearts of folks attracted to women? If some of you, what was the term again? If some of you hail from Lesbos. The man tried. What's a Lesbos? The woman with the short hair asked, replacing the bone club on her back. If a girl likes another girl very much. The ash woman said. It didn't help. He is asking if any of us finds attraction in the fairer sex, the vampire replied. Out of patience, I find this line of questioning entirely inappropriate. Mr. Celestial, you have to learn just a little more tact. The bunny reproached. Some people are very sensitive about things like that. No, no, no. The man said as he flapped his arm and tried, in vain, to dodge the water the dragon girl was spitting at him. I promise that I do not care, mind. Listen, please. He faced the rebellious crowd with obvious concern. It just happened that the arch-evil here created demons when he only had a very, vague understanding of sexual intimacy. So, the succubus can corrupt the hearts of men regardless of preferences. Old school types, you know the dealie why. Ha ha. Ahem. It has led to some surprising platonic relationships over the years, so it was not exactly bad, unless you count as bad demons acting in a good way and destabilizing. He realized that he had lost them. Okay, it's not important right now. Terribly sorry, but I can't stay and, you are, contractually obligated to at least try something as heroines. Terribly sorry for the bother. Oh, one last thing. You have 3 days. Bye. Toodaloo. The man disappeared in a puff of rainbow smoke and a hesitant sound of distant trombones. A massive portal appeared. Adventure beckoned. Chapter 105. Tonight, my sire sits on a new throne in the stone workshop as I come in from my bedroom, servant in tow. The unceasing noise of his servants clearing rubble must have bothered him, because he gestures and the sounds. Stop. I do not let myself react. Casters have long realized that sound is carried by air, and interfering with said air will silence even the most dire of thunderstorms. I was led to understand that such an undertaking requires fine-tuned control. I knew that he could call on immense power, and it also appears that he knows how to use a scalpel just as well as a hammer. You may rise, Ariane. Nirari's voice is as smooth as caramel. It belongs in a boudoir somewhere, drinking tea and whispering amusing witticisms. I am not surprised that my foolish mortal self would fall for him. I stand back up from my respectful bow while Violet remains prostrate. I was thankfully given a hastily made white linen dress of strange make which leaves my arms and shoulders free while wrapping around my neck. I look like an exotic dancer posing as a Roman vestal. I should not be so judgmental. They worked in a hurry and I would rather wear this than the grisly remains of my previous blood-stained dress. I did not realize yesterday that I was one thin thread away from revealing entirely too much breast. A dreadful proposal in the present company. I did not expect to see you so soon. Fate has a way to set us on a collision course when we least expect it. Do you not agree, little warrior princess? So it would seem, I politely reply. I considered visiting you and having you join our cause. It is a grand one, a task that has been in the works for a millennium. The work of an epoch, soon to be completed. Why did you not, then? Because our foe tends to go after my servants and tools as soon as I turn my back, he explains with obvious annoyance. Only my financial assets remain untouched and only because she, too, relies on the Rosenthal to manage her wealth. She? I ask immediately as would be expected from someone who does not know of Semiramis. I am in luck, because my sire is so absorbed in his own speech that the deception is taken as an invitation to continue. My mother. The greatest witch who ever lived and an extraordinary woman. She made me what I am. She made all of us. He returns his attention to me. You remind me of her sometimes. It takes a certain mentality to never give up, to constantly search for ways to succeed regardless of the circumstances. Of course, she was more hungry. The world then had even less sympathy for weakness than it does now. He pauses as he mulls over some distant memory. As long as he speaks about himself, he does not ask me too many questions and that suits me just fine. I dare not think of what would happen if he knew that I had already met the one of whom he speaks. I think I loved her, once. What changed? I ask. That was a mistake. Master. No, my sire deploys his aura and he crushes me like an insect. I am slammed into the ground as if by a wall of cold and disdain. It does not even feel like aggression. He is just disciplining a wayward child. The world turns blank under the tremendous pressure. My mind slows. My eyes take in a small spot of ground on the distance, every bump, every shift in color of the gray stone, simply because I cannot turn my head. A strange sense of pressure forces my jaws shut. Nothing exists, only this small expanse of rock, Violet's heartbeats and abiding cold. As soon as it came, the punishment stops. The abyssal pressure disappears, and I wonder in disbelief why the room has not frozen over. A daring line of questioning, Ariane. I nod because I do not trust my voice at the moment. What should matter to you is why I oppose her. You must have guessed. I know she wants to be a goddess and he wants to eat her before she succeeds, yet the knowledge is trite because it only scratches the surface. Their animosity stems from an irrepressible gap between them, the same that exists between him and I. We are two alike. I do not know how much of my drive is his and how much I inherited from my human self. I believe that I would have been happy making a family, creating successful companies and leading projects until the day I died without having to take on the world. My lack of arrogance was most likely wisdom. I knew the scope of what I could conquer with the limited time I had. Those considerations are gone now along with my mortality. We Devours are not creatures of power, but of conquest. There is always another bigger prey. She is your last great rival. Correct, the ancient king answers, pleased, only she still stands in the way of complete dominion. When I consume her, I will become a living god and achieve true immortality. No coalition, no order, not even the endless tides of mankind's armies will be an obstacle. Even the sun's deadly embrace will fail to destroy me. His gaze grows distant. His expression turns thoughtful, and what terrifies me is that the dream he speaks of comes with no animation, no gesture nor smile. He recites the words like an automaton, as if they had lost any meaning to him and he was just going through the motion. This terrifies me more than his aura ever could. Imagine a world at peace, guided by a benevolent hand towards a unified goal rather than mired in petty squabbles as it is now. So many resources are wasted on meaningless pursuits while we could achieve so much as a unified people under my wise rule. Mortals, mages, vampires, all working towards common purposes for the benefit of all, for who better than one who has lived so long can envision so much? Who has a better long-term goal than he who will live to see it? It will be our golden age and you, too, can be a part of it. You will not be satisfied. I almost spit. Caution thrown to the winds. My sire shows no anger despite my challenge. Of course not, and neither will the mortals. We are designed to expand and fill the world with our progeny, yes? Luckily, I have a way to circumvent this difficulty. Are you perhaps familiar with the latest advances in magic? The information clicks in my mind. The other realms. Quite so. If there is one, then there are more. It will take some time to find them. I do not mind. Time is what I have. Conquest without an end. Endless wars. Unending subjugations. Until he tickles something too powerful and our entire civilization is wiped out from an uncaring universe. That is not the worst. The worst is that even if Nasharba and Amareda's prophecies prove correct and I manage to stop both him and Semiramis, what will prevent me from doing the same? As he said, we are alike. My silence affords me a minute grin from the seated king. I do not lower my guard. He may be pleasant now, yet the steel below the surface is ever present, and I would be a fool to think him in high spirits. Enough banter. I have not yet decided what to do with you, little princess. Until I do, you will make yourself useful. I have a task for you. I perk up. Thinking that far in the future is a waste of time when I am not even sure I will survive the night. Yet another problem for future Ariane, may luck favor her. Did you notice a corridor with a large pool of dried blood on your way here? He asks. I have. Even in this relatively cold temperature, the stain has started flaking and giving off a heavy, rancid stench. You will clear it to its end then return to me. You do not have my permission to feed until you do so. I understand. Frustration wells up until I force myself to calm down. I expended a lot of vitality putting myself back together. I should be fine for another day or two. Maybe. I remember that restraining the blood supply is a common, if risky, method of control. Constant thirst is not conducive to deep thought and planning. Nirari dismisses me with a casual gesture, and I leave from the door behind me, Violet in tow. We arrive at the four-way corridor. The stone workshop is at our back, my bedroom and the way out to my left, and my destination forward. 10 men and women attack stones with bars and pickaxes, sometimes casting a hesitant glance in my direction as if unsure of the proper protocol. When I do not react, they go back to their labor with renewed energy. The corridor beckons. I stop at the edge of the pool of blood and turn to Violet by my back. I know that she communicates via hand gestures, but I do not know their code. We will have to work the old-fashioned way. I will ask you a few questions. Nod for yes, shake your head for no. Do you understand? The servant fidgets nervously, face suddenly paler. She quickly relents when my expression turns cold. Did someone die here? Nod. Was that person one of your numbers? Nod. Did you see how it happened? Shake. Do you know what killed him? Hesitant nod. I need to be more specific. Was he killed by a trap? Nod. Was this trap magical in nature? Frantic nod. I suspected that it might be the case given the obvious camouflage, but I was not quite certain. I still cannot pierce the veil of illusion marking whatever the corridor truly contains, a sign of professional work as most mirages unravel once their presence is made obvious. I suppose that time has finally come for some real-life application of my studies. Violet, do you know of the tool room? The one with smithing equipment? Nod. I want you to get me a rune engraver, a long bar, and a few plates, if you find any. Her charcoal eyes gaze at me for a full second before she answers, and in them I see something I had not expected, relief. I remember that she was tasked to help me. Perhaps she expected me to use her as live bait. That would be wasteful and slovenly. I consider her a bit more as her retreating back turns into the corridor. She and her companions have very angular traits from a race I do not recognize. They are not cattle. Does this mean that my sire has a domain somewhere from whence he pulled them, or did he borrow a contingent from a dwarlord? My understanding is that both he and his mother spend a significant amount of energy and resources destroying each other's fiefs. It might just be that some have started to survive. I fear the implication. I turn back to the empty alley and pick a few pebbles that I throw forward. After 5 or so, I have thoroughly explored the boundaries of the illusion. The false image of normalcy starts 6 or 7 paces away, just after the limit of the bloodstain. It curves outward slightly due to the enchantments being placed on the wall. This will make my attempt easier. Violet returns in short order with everything I asked, including a half-torn iron plate covered in fuzzy red rust. Block your ears, I tell the woman. She obeys without hesitation. I grit my teeth and apply the carver against the plate. Soon, the abominable shriek of tortured metal covers even the clangs of the excavation. I finish tracing and inspect the results. Loth taught me how to disrupt spells when we worked on his shield breaker spheres. My construct is quite complex and shows that Virga runes for disrupt, reveal, and unmake. The reveal sigil takes the central position for an illusion-specific countermeasure. I prick my right wrist and trace the drawing with black blood, muttering in the sharp, gravelly tongue of my old friend. They soon shine blue and eager. I fling the thing until it lands at the point I identified as a nexus. At first nothing happens. Then the air shimmers and the color of the stones beneath shift from marble white to obsidian black. Rather quickly, a crackling circle of white bolts form in the air. It expands outward like a popping bubble. The spell breaks with a clear chime and the spectacle before us changes entirely. Gone are the naked rock and sterile appearance. Complex glyph patterns now adorn the walls, centered around metal panes set in the very stone. Above, the strange yellow lines that provide illumination radiate with renewed ardor. A few glyphs fizzle where the threshold used to be and reveal behind them a long metal pane with a horizontal slit. Techie, It appears that you are wrong, Violet. This is a mechanical trap, I conclude. The enticing scent of stark terror soon teases my nostril and I turn when I hear a light thump. The devoted servant is on her knees, forehead stuck to the ground. Rise. There will be no punishment this time. She springs back up like a puppet on strings, face filled with gratitude. I have no time for this. I need to escape quickly, or they will find ways to control me through pact or coercion. She is an enemy, albeit not a serious one, and I do not want to spend the effort to create bonds. She and her companions are clearly indoctrinated like the most dedicated NRO subjects. I will treat her decently since I would not benefit from gratuitous cruelty, but I will kill her if she gets in the way. Sensing my disdain, the woman lowers her head and I return my attention to the now unveiled corridor to come to an immediate and definitive conclusion. Whoever did this was completely bonkers. Mad as a hare. And dangerous. It must have taken 100 hours of work for a competent mage to design, create and install this death trap. Even Jonathan would be impressed by the depths of paranoia involved in this project. I feel like whistling in appreciation. Unfortunately, I will have to solve this Gordian knot and, who knows, perhaps I can escape that way and leave a few traps active? I immediately start to inspect the defenses and I am once more grateful for the inhuman sight which allows me to decipher the defenses without getting closer. The first trap, the one that already claimed a victim, is a mechanism springing blades horizontally from both walls with a magical trigger based on perceived movement. I think it has a way to rearm itself too. There are also pressure-activated fire spells on the ground in case someone gets cute and decides to crawl across. The disarming mechanism on those is trapped too. And this is just the first layer of defenses. There are two others, plus some contraption where the corridor angles connected to the metal pane of the blade trap. Oh well, at least this is interesting. You might want to move back into the side, Violet. I turn to see her point to the side with some confusion. Move back into the side, I order. This time, she obeys without hesitation. Note to self, my sire does not cultivate the art of insistent suggestions among his followers. Spider walk. I cast the spell in English as I need very little power. Nirari did not react to me using Lycaon during the fight. Perhaps he did not recognize the tongue. In any case, I would rather not force my luck. I crawl up the wall. If I were in my armor I could simply walk on the surface. Sadly, doing so in that dress would mean that my eyes would be covered instead of my unmentionables. Once I am above one of the panels, I use the rune engraver to disarm the trap preventing access to the inner mechanism, then repeat the same thing on the other side. After I am done, I drop and take care of the fire spell on the ground. Now for the mechanical one. I see no obvious gap in the pane. Sometimes, when there is no point of ingress, you just have to make one. I lean against the wall and raise my gauntlet. Stonebreaker. This spell is specifically designed to break hard material in a small surface. I added it to my repertoire for out-of-reach metal locks and other annoying things I want to demolish from afar. It shares the disrupt glyph with the reveal spell, which is convenient since there are only so many runes that can fit in a gauntlet frame. The other three are opposition, shatter, and diamond. A narrow purple ray emerges from my hand to hit the distant panel. The contraption rings like a broken bell. A hidden panel on the far wall slides open and a giant quarrel that would belong on a Roman artillery piece emerges from its recess. A ballista trap. How quaint. The tip expands with a dreadful clang mid-flight. Instead of a standard head, the projectile has 4 blades in a cross pattern. Fishing for volume, are we? I grab the thing with ease as it passes by, only moving forward a bit on account of its tremendous weight. Whoever designed the bolt sacrificed power in the hope of achieving surprise. A human with excellent reflexes could dodge this. I twirl the spear-like object and think. Only the mechanical trap is left. Now how would I go about getting rid of that one? I could use the bolt and the metal bar I requested to block the blade after triggering it, thus preventing it from rearming. Or I could go the Ariane way. That sounds like more fun and would let me inspect the thing for future references. I dig my talons at the edge between stone and metal, plant my feet on the wall, channel as much Nautilus essence as I can and pull. The groan of forcefully deformed metal reverberates in the corridor and the sounds of excavation stop again. I grunt with the effort of pulling the panel open. It resists for a while, then something gives in and the whole thing comes loose. I place the trap on the ground to inspect it, keeping well clear of the path of the blade. The contraption is quite long. The cutting edge runs its length, kept in a state of tension by a lock triggered by a spell. A system of pulleys with a powerful enchantment reloads the trap after each use. I destroy the locking mechanism and the blade snaps out. Enchanted too. Someone was not taking any chances. I dispose of the second trap the same way and realize that I am, in fact, having fun. Disarming traps is like solving a puzzle with the added stake of something unpleasant happening if you make a mistake. How exciting! The only thing missing is a little snack at the end. I may be more thirsty than I originally thought. Oh well. I turn to Violet, who has been staring at me with some measure of amazement for a while now. She looks tasty. She is also forbidden, so I tear one of the blades off and go to the next trap. This one is designed to let off a massive amount of electricity into its victim, and is coupled with a pit with some spikes at the bottom, including one made out of silver. This one is a one-time only, so I trigger the electrical part from afar, then walk closer and jam a metal bar in the opening mechanism of the pit. I think that someone who would only see the mechanical trap could consider crawling under, which would have triggered the flame spell, or rush through with some very powerful armor or a werewolf body, and the second trap would have done them in no matter how sturdy they are. Well planned indeed. The third one is interesting as well. I find small openings which could throw darts. I also notice not one, but two decoys meant to have someone come closer with an unknown trigger hidden behind a layer of chip paint. I try to activate it with movement, by throwing a spell through it and even by dropping my metal bar in the middle of the construct. Nothing. On a hunch, I draw a decoy rune of blood onto stone and toss it. The corridor flashes at the presence of flesh and a strange whistle fills the air. A disgusting, green cloud of acidic liquid is spat from the small holes, leaving behind an acrid stench. The strange liquid eats into the stone. Ah, if someone had managed to pass the first two hurdles through careful analysis, a close inspection of the decoys may have turned them to meaty soup. Charming. Whoever designed this is delightfully twisted. I want to take them by the collar and throw them through their own creation to see what remains at the end. After I had a little bite, of course. Thirsty? Casting takes comparatively little energy. The damage dealt by Malakim's claws must have been more severe than I first assumed. Oh well. I can feed soon. I hope. After another thorough inspection, I finally manage to reach the end of the corridor where the hidden crossbow remains concealed and look around the corner to find another corridor filled with traps with a heavy bronze door at its end. And, as my nose had informed me, a body in the distance. This one has remained here long enough to be ripe. It reeks atrociously. Violet, who had foolishly followed me without waiting for my go-ahead, pinches her nose under the horrible assault. This man apparently triggered the first layer of trap, if the metal bar skewering his chest is any indication. He wears a full robe in purple with a golden filigree, which either makes him a cultist or a clownish villain in some traveling circus. It is hard to tell, sometimes. In any case, I am not working under these conditions. I quickly inscribe a few runes of air and flow on yet another stone, add a pinch of blood and voila, an improvised fan. The air progressively clears as I inspect this new intellectual delicacy. Alas, this one will be much easier to deal with. It is designed to trap people in. Our dear departed friend fell prey to it. Come to think of it, his body is past the first layer, therefore he must have been running for his life for inertia to carry his corpse that far. Truly, cultist cultisti lupus. I find no hidden crossbow facing that side of the corridor and start working, well aware of Violet's regular breath as she watches me work. Her heartbeat thumps in my ears and her scent soon dispels memories of the earlier fetid smell. I do not have to report immediately. I could explore a bit, and, if I find an exit, Drain the little spying waif dry before running away. Nashoba's earrings still adorn my ears and I have ways to hide my tracks. Tempting. In fact, I believe I shall do just that. With renewed energy, I methodically dismantle the first layer of traps consisting of some overlapping fire spells and reach the corpse. He holds no focus that I can see, but I am not wading through corpse juice to find out more. I engrave a drying spell on the ground next to him to sicken water away. Bodies smell much less when they are mummified. Setting it on fire would be a stupid idea in an enclosed space. Finally I arrive at the last layer, giddy with excitement. I want to eat Violet and leave, but I must wait. I need to be sure. It is only a matter of seconds to trigger the 2 remaining traps as those do not have a way to rearm themselves. Then I am at the heavy brass door. I bend forward to inspect it for one last trap on this side and am sent flying backwards. Ah! My back and head smash against the wall and I struggle against the hand now clamped on my throat. The pressure increases and I stop struggling. My vision clears to reveal the bloodshot eyes of Malakim. His black hair falls over his face and he sneers with hatred. Going somewhere, sister? He wears a dark leather armor with an assortment of weapons and feels secured around. His throat is covered by a gray scarf. Merely checking the door for anomalies, I lie. Malakim sighs, then turns to Violet. Fuck off. She runs away as fast as her legs can carry her. Once she is gone, Malakim returns his full attention to me. Is that so? I find it hard to believe. Or perhaps this is my natural distrust at work. Has it occurred to you that I may want you to die? The thought crossed my mind. I croak, trying to relax his grip. My struggles are in vain. He is as unyielding as a steel wall. Because I do. You, the latecomer. You, who returned after our dear sire already found his pawn and you who grew up without his glacial claws on your neck. I assure you that it was not a sinecure. Malakim releases me and I jump on my feet then away from him. He turns to match me with a door at his back. Escape plans cancelled. For now. Ah, yes, the man says in a mocking voice, the terrible burden of freedom. I am aware of the difficulties of being thrown out into the wilds as a fledgling, believe me. Just keep in mind that I would crawl through a mile of silvery glass for the privilege of suffering what you suffered. You are aiming your anger at the wrong person. You do not understand, princess, I do not have to aim my anger at anyone, there is more than enough to go around. But since I am on a leash, I will drop you now and we will play nice, like the civilized assholes we pretend to be. And any time you look at me I want you to remember that I hate you, that I do not need a reason to hate you, and that I will gladly end your life. If this is about the spell. His eyes narrow with suspicion. What spell? He forgot. The one I used to mangle your arm. It actually takes a few seconds for his face to show any hint of recollection, whereupon he proceeds to laugh. The sound would be warm if it were not so bitter. He keeps it as if I had told a good jest. That is cute. You think my arm matters. You brainless, ignorant, stupid bitch. I am looking forward to your escape attempt. I hope you make it fun. I do not. I start defending myself, but he interrupts me by choking me again. Or, you could stay here and become our sire's plaything. He no longer has much of a sexual appetite, but I am sure that you could resurrect it. He does enjoy breaking new toys. I need to get out. So, try and leave and make it smart enough, daring enough that he gives you to me. I never had the opportunity to share everything he taught and now I have a sister. Please. The days are dull. Let me go. But of course. He replies and he finally releases my throat. I massage it out of habit as he picks up the trap blade I had liberated and snaps it in half. That stupid strength. Still, I am curious, and the thirst removes many of my inhibitions and survival mechanisms. Can't you regain your freedom, at all? Instead of exploding, Malakim merely tilts his head in consideration. You do not know. Of course, you do not know, princess. There was no one to ever tell you otherwise. There is no regaining my freedom. I was a slave of my village, then I was a slave of the Holy League's army, Then I was a slave of our dear sire. There has not been a time when I was free, and, until I die, there won't. Why? How can you be so sure? I object. No matter how binding the oath, vampires can break it if they are willing to pay the price. I would die rather than do some things, and this is an outcome I have already accepted. Why can he not just greet the dawn? In answer, Malakim removes his scarf and I get a better look at his collar. I first got a glimpse of it during our fight, but I had, at the time, been focused on more pressing matters. More specifically, killing him. Now, I am left to wonder how distracted I had been. The fabric is of a strange material like the skin of a snake, with pearlescent scales interspersed here and there. The yellow light above does not reflect on it. Instead, it shines from inside with an otherworldly light as delicate as it is precious. I feel a sense of wonder taking it in, as well as one, more subdued, of horror when I see the outlines of several runes. Such potential, such ethereal grace, and he already turned it into shackles in one sacrilegious decision. I am appalled. There are some who die without ever being free, and I have been alive longer than most, Malakim says, this time almost subdued. I cannot hide the disbelief in my voice. Is this? Yes. Dragon skin. He made a collar out of dragon skin. I cannot disobey, I cannot kill myself. Freedom will only come after the great task is done. This, he promised. When he catches his mother. Indeed. We are looking for her, princess, and when we find her, he will take her essence as his own. Then there will be no stopping him anymore. Death will no longer have sway. And when it is done, I can finally let go. It is only a matter of time before the rat runs out of places to hide. I would not be so sure. I peer at the dragon skin. I want to touch it, course my finger over the mesmerizing fabric, but I cannot. Malakim notices my gaze, for which I am grateful. I would not want him to try and see if I already knew of Semiramis from before. That would lead to unpleasant circumstances. Greedy, are we? Sorry, little sister. This one is already in use, and I was told that there are no more dragons to be had. He then takes a few steps back and bows politely, extending a hand to the bronze gate. I tire of this discussion, and the air here is quite rank. Should we have a look around and see if there is anyone to talk to? Remember, no feeding. I hiss. How dare he? I need IT. The man raises both hands in a disarming gesture. He said I could feed after clearing the corridor. Absolutely not, my thirsty little sister. He said you would not have his leave until then. You still need his approval. I want to object to the semantics, but I realize that to get justice I would need to return to Nirari. To go further with Malakim means that, perhaps, there will be an opportunity to escape. There will be none if I return. I could drain the foe's puppet first and then go with Mala. No. No. He is playing with me. I must take the risk. I must escape as soon as I can. The longer I stay and the easier it will be for them to bind me. So, I fake my best smile and move forward. The bronze gate is not even locked. I still inspect it for anomalies and find a few reinforcement runes as well as a spent alarm rune. With nothing dangerous around, I step into a large square room. The first thing I notice is that the smell is not much better, and the stench this time comes from a bisected mana hound. The massive purple beast was cleaved in two by some metal blade of sorts, both sides and the innards spread over a paved floor. Two doors lead away. The first one is to my left and must have been a way out at some point. A desk stands next to it as well as racks still covered in coats, and a few crates. It has been collapsed, rocks and gravel spilling into the room. The farther door is more promising. Made of heavy bronze like the others, it is still locked. I stare around as I move forward. This room doubled as a warehouse and armory at some point. I spot a rack of rifles, still clean, but no silver bullets. Clearly whoever made this base was imaged with a high sense of security, if the traps are any indication. It was not enough, and at least one mana hound escaped containment, possibly causing some sort of quarantine measure that sealed the entrance. In any case, if the inhabitants of the base have not left through another way, They should still have a strong presence. There should be at least a few mages and a few soldiers if the traps and weapons are any indication. I cannot exactly use this to my advantage. They will not make a difference against Malakim. I cross the floor, monster in tow, and am again grateful not to have to breathe. The two bodies must have stayed there for at least a week in a damp environment. Small mercy, there are no flies around, so no maggots. Malakim is like a sword of Damocles hanging above my neck as I kneel to inspect the next gate. I close my eyes and focus on other senses. There is something on the other side, the familiar taste of warning of an alarm spell. A few years back I would have been unable to unravel it. Now, I place my gauntlet-covered hand against the cold, smooth metal and pluck the spell apart string by string until, with a snap, it collapses on itself with no one the wiser. I try the handle. Locked. A quick spell takes care of the unprotected keyhole and the heavy gate swings open silently, surfing on well-oiled hinges. We are in a dormitory. It is the middle of the night now and a dozen mortals sleep soundly in lined-up cots separated by curtains hung on wooden poles. Chests and wardrobes line the wall. The left side corner has been isolated, and the smell of soap and excrements emanates from it. No one has woken up yet. Malakim overtakes me, bumping against my shoulder and eliciting a hiss that he ignores. He stops above the first cot and looks on with a serene expression. This is the first time since I have met him that he seems at peace. He lifts a finger and inspects the talon with patient interest while, below him, a man slumbers. That's the best way to leave, I think. You sleep, then you die, comfortably drifting from one state to another. No pain and no awareness, he whispers in a voice that only a vampire could pick up. He stabs the man between the eyes and just above the nose. There is slight noise of broken bone and a sort of suction. His victim gasps very lightly, but the noise is not enough to cover the sighs and light snores of the others. I look with pain at the wasted blood dripping on the ground, turning it red. So thirsty? Maybe I can. Just one. But no, he is waiting for it. He is waiting for me to disobey. Malakim draws the curtain to reveal another victim. The first was bald and severe, lying on his back like a gisant. This one is young with curly blonde hair. He sleeps on his side curled in a fetal position. Malakim places his gore-covered finger against the man's temple. He inspects me thoughtfully, aware that I am the unwilling witness of this farce. I despise him for this show. He is making a mockery of what we are by toying with a sleeping prey, spreading the scent of blood and wasted vitality while I am here, starving, only maintaining my facade because this might be my only chance to escape. Then there is the surprise death that catches you when you least expect it. Still not a bad way to go, my horrid brother adds. The pain of a needle wakes the man long enough to draw a panicked breath in. Before he can even register the body of his friend, Malakim stabs down. Another gasp, another rattle, another source of vitality spoiled for his sordid amusement. A new curtain is drawn on his next victim. This time, the man is older with a bushy brown beard. His snores are the loudest. The thing that scares us the most is to know you are dying, feel it in your soul, and be powerless to stop it. Very few experiences prepare us to face that fear, don't you think? He removes a thin stiletto from a sheath on his chest and stabs the bearded one in the neck. The man wakes up with widened eyes made all the more frantic by the abominable pain he must be feeling. Malakim just severed his spine. The maimed man gasps like a beached fish and tries to call for help, but no sounds come out. His lungs are no longer his own. He dies like this, tears staining his cheeks. Curtain. A very young man barely out of childhood with very dark close-cropped hair. So thirsty? And then there is a pain that transcends all others. All those who considered death coming reflected on what they would leave behind, what kind of legacy they left for their loved ones. Like you, who carved out a small kingdom in these barbaric lands and rules over it like a small-time landlady. I love to destroy their pitiful achievements and send them to oblivion with the knowledge that everything they struggled for is lost. The boy struggles frantically, held up in the air by two hands. His feet kick pointlessly against Malakim's armor in a stupid little dance. His eyes focus on me. Such a waste. Malakim blocked his mouth and nose with one imperious hand as he lifted him. Not a single whine escapes the youth's tortured throat, as there simply is no air to do so. Clearly, Brother Deer has experience in such matters. The boy's skin turns purple and his eyes, bloodshot. Before he dies, he has the time to see me, the corpses of his friends, and to understand. Malakim gives him enough time to come to the realization that all those people he lived with were going to die. That is not the worst. The worst is that half of those people are still blissfully asleep and there is nothing he can do to save them. After one last twitch and the sound of emptying bowels, Malakim puts the corpse back on his bed with far more care than he had given when the boy was alive. Beside me, a man with the appearance of a soldier shows signs of waking up. Kill him, but do not feed, Malakim orders. The cur. I obey the sire, but he has no right to. Ah! The bastard stabbed me, just a flesh wound on my arm. He cleans the black blood on his armor as a supreme gesture of insult. Kill him, but do not feed. One day I will kill him. And Nirari, and Semiramis, and Anatole, and more. They will all die. But not tonight. Tonight, I must survive and tally the offenses against me to be paid at a later date. This is fine. I have suffered indignations in the past and I will suffer them in the future as well. What matters is to live long enough to see them repaid. With interest. Patient hunter will triumph here. I take a page from his book and stab the man in the brain with a claw before he can react. I can do no better without a blade, and I am, once again, weaponless. Cracking neck bones as I usually do would be too noisy. I do not even know why I care. All this blood. If I cause enough chaos, then perhaps. No, he will know. Out of all the ways I demonstrated, you chose the most expedient, as expected of my survival expert of a sister. I care not for his sick game. I just want to feed. We will have ample time to teach you how to enjoy things the proper way. This idiot hovers at the edge of turning rogue. He is probably held back by his stupid almighty artifact. Dragon skin. By the Watcher. We should finish and move on, I reply with gritted teeth. Oh. Eager, are we? Very well then. He takes 3 knives from their harness and tosses them casually in one gesture. They hit 3 throats. Nice trick. He takes another 5 and moves his arms twice, killing the rest. Half a dozen men choke on their blood. Shall we? We leave the room now filled with the scents of blood, piss, and shit. Only a few gurgles still break the silence as I unlock the next door. Malakim once again pushes me into a room as large as the first one. This one was split in 2. On our left, a workshop takes up most of the space. Heavy tables are covered in stone tablets and fragments in the process of being reassembled. A trail of dust leads to a small passage. On the right, 2 large beds host the remains of an orgy. 5 scantily clad women sleep in the arms of a muscular man with a chest like a barrel and an older mage with a scar on his cheek. Typical cults, Malakim idly comments. The leader uses girls to reward his lieutenants and more valuable members. He will be in a separate room with the choicest morsels. What are they doing here? I wonder. Grandma left many toys and entrances in those rot warrens of hers, so it is no surprise that some were found. He affects a frown. But of course, you are correct. We should ask them. Just to be sure. Malakim struts to the closest bed, grins like a teenager doing a prank and upends it. The tangle of limbs crashes to the ground with swears and shrieks. The muscle man is the first to jump on his feet, fists swinging. Malakim leans into his attack and smacks the man's head back with an open palm. He barely uses enough strength to push his opponent. The mage notices me as he frantically puts on his glove. His eyes narrow with rage. Bolt. I dodge the transparent projectile with a hiss. Seriously? Why me? You have a perfectly valid target and you go for the unarmed woman in a skimpy Roman dress? Prick. Malakim chuckles as the burly man steps to the side and grabs a large truncheon. My brother takes hold of the bed, eliciting cries from the women still crawling on the ground, and lifts it. The little group grows silent as he tosses the piece of furniture into the workshop, where it crashes with a loud bang of broken wood. What the hell? The Muslim mutters. The Mage pales. He understands. He looks and smells scrumptious. Alive and afraid. Dios mío. One of the women swears. Another stands up and does her best to readjust her shift so that they cover her heavy breasts. She is a bit older than the others, with a frame that leans on heavy and a long shock of brown hair that reaches her lower back. I do not know who you are, but please listen to me. You are interfering with a divine project that will redesign mankind as we know it. We can bring you hope too. We have a wonderful message to share if you would only listen. Ah, one of the recruiters. She leads the women to lure in new recruits. I know how cults operate, Malakim. I do not need your lessons. My God, the Mage interrupts, shivering. It cannot be. Oh, very well, Malakim answers before turning to the one who had interrupted him. Let me guess, you need to decipher the secrets in the universe held in those stelas behind me. Then your glorious leader will lead all of you to paradise. The woman's careful control slips, showing the worry underneath. Yes. Absolutely, paradise on earth and eternal life. An end to hunger and disease. Would that not be wonderful? Please no. The Mage whispers on the side. Ah, a variation on the old classic. Good enough. The stocky woman shows an expression of surprise as her head falls off her shoulders. Malakim mechanically butchers everyone except the Mage in only a few swings. Screams die on silenced lips. The familiar smell of death now mingles with that of stale sex. Again, the waste makes me want to kill him. I barely listen to the panic mumblings of the spellcaster as he speaks of research and insights into the tablet's language. All things we do not need, as Semiramis works in a coded version of Akkad. My brother grabs his victim by the throat and drains him slowly under my glare as a display of power. His two blue eyes peer over the white neck, daring me to attack him in his moment of vulnerability. I cannot afford it. I am already starving, and healing from the wounds he would inflict would cost me any chance I have to escape. Bear with it, Ariane, patient hunter. I can do it. I can do it. I just need a way out. A door opposite the one leading back creaks open. Shuffling feet and grumbles heralding the arrival of the cults. What is the... Oh. A woman says. A large variation on the old classic, Malakim comments lazily like a man at a market inspecting a strangely shaped pumpkin. The newcomer is indeed a surprise. She is a beautiful woman with an entirely shaven head dressed in a heavy blue cloak. She is also a powerful mage, and I recognize her aura in the traps we faced. A young man with an angelic face peers curiously from behind her. You. What have you done? She screams. To her credit, she reacts immediately. Her hands raised to reveal two bracers covered in runes. Sharp blades emerge from her cloak to fly in the air like an angry swarm of bees. Interesting, she relies on a telekinesis spell. It takes a great amount of concentration and a natural predisposition to make this work. Malakim scoffs and lets the first blade impact his heart, where it stops completely. The woman pales. I am going to walk to you. I will grab you by the neck and then I will snap your spine like a dry twig, he announces. The Mage frowns and focuses a dozen blades in a cloud, hovering before her. Malakim takes a step forward. An enchanted dagger nicks his cheek. Black blood seeps from the wound. I understand now why he did not try to dodge my shred spell, the one that mangled his arm. Malakim does not dodge wounds if it allows him to finish the fight immediately. His method goes against every instinct of self-preservation ingrained deep within our minds. The cult leader throws everything she has at him. Malakim's face turns into a pincushion, but none of the blades pierce the skull. His foe's anger turns to dismay. The vampire steps to the Mage and grabs her by the throat as she scrambles against the wall. He stares her in the eyes as she dies, then backhands the boy attacking him from the side. Were you not going to interrogate her? I ask, my patience at an end. Why would I ever do that? Because I could have learned if there is another exit besides the obviously caved-in one. Because our sire is searching the place and they have researched it extensively. Pa. They are cultists, not scholars. HSSS. I struggle to remain in control. Thirsty? I take a deep breath to push the sensation back, ignore its claws buried deeply into my mind, pushing, craving. It takes monumental effort of self-control, but eventually I manage to regain some measure of calm. I am holding, for now. Malakim gives a knowing smile. Almost there now. We will just see what is behind the last door and then we will head back. Normally we avoid drinking from the silent folk, but I am sure that an exception will be made. I just need you to be very thorough in your inspection. We would not want to miss anything, no? I know he will drag it out, but I have no choice. A quick inspection of the workshop reveals a passage leading to storage rooms filled with preserved food, digging tools and a small well for fresh water. I accidentally find the cesspit they used to get rid of the waste as well as the bodies of 2 more hounds. The smell is so shockingly strong that it clears my mind. We find the leader's quarters in the last room of the complex. They contain a single bed with a large sword by its side, probably what she used to kill the hounds. A large circle dug into the ground shows rudimentary runes, a far cry from the sophisticated construct I saw in Alexandria. They're lucky the portal fizzled before it could destabilize. Amateurs. Children fiddling with magics they cannot understand, and yet, the cultists still manage to achieve something. I wonder if the knowledge of how to create portals is fully disseminated yet. I shake my head to focus on the last large gate left here. It was sealed with redundant layers of protection. Even with the caster dead, the runes covering it still shimmer under the pale light of the lines. This is my last hope. All the other passages have led to dead ends. If this is one as well, I will have to postpone my plan and risk being bound. No feeding until we determine exactly where the cult complex ends, little sister. Show me how you unlock this, Malakim says with a vicious grin. The thirstier we grow, and the harder it becomes to focus on mental tasks. Fortunately, I am not so far gone yet. I pick a heavy key from a nearby bed table and calmly use it on the lock. I give a disparaging glance to Malakim as the runes fade and the gate clocks open. He returns one of controlled rage. Just because I am weaker does not mean I am stupid. We walk into a cavern wide enough to host a house. While the rest of the installation was dug into solid rocks through unknown means, this is quite clearly a natural formation. Stalactites hang from a tall ceiling crisscrossed with the ubiquitous yellow lines, and in its center lies a dragon. An entire bloody dragon. With a scaly muzzle, 2 horns, 2 wings, and a heavy orange stone on its forehead. It rests like a sphinx on its bed of stone. My legs almost give way before I take back control and realize my error. This is a statue of a dragon. By the Watcher, I would have had a heart attack if I still could. By the Watcher. Malakim whispers, joining his curse to mine. He whistles in admiration. The sound echoes across the chasm. The dragon statue opens its eyes. Tope continued,